The president of Afghanistan fled his own country as the Taliban continues to gain control of the nation and seizes control of the capital. New video showing Taliban leaders inside the presidential palace. And tonight, the Taliban is promising a peaceful transition into leadership, a vow many fear will not be true. Take a look at how quickly the Taliban has advanced. The area in red showing how much ground the terrorist group has gained since April. NewsNation's Felicia Bolton has been keeping a close eye on this quickly changing situation. She joins us now with the very latest. Felicia.
Well, Rudabeh, the Taliban will be back in power right before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The attack on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon started the 2 decades-long war in Afghanistan. Though the Taliban promised a peaceful transition today, the U.S. Embassy warned Americans to shelter in place and not to try to get to Kabul's international airport following reports of gunfire there. Senior U.S. military officials say the airport is now closed to commercial flights, and military evacuations will likely be the only way out of the fallen country. The race to rescue U.S. diplomats from Afghanistan is on. U.S. military choppers are flying over the embassy to evacuate citizens as the Taliban takeover is nearly complete. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country Sunday. Women are seen forced to put on burqas, a staunch requirement placed on them by the new leadership. And soon, the militant group plans to declare the country as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan from the presidential palace, a return to the name of the nation under their rule prior to the 9/11 attacks. A blow to U.S. service members who fought in the 20-year war.
I am angry because I think that, one, I don't know a veteran who wants us to still be in Afghanistan. We all want out. We all want to find a way to have Americans and Western troops and service members leave the country, but not in a way that's going to get our allies killed, not in a way that is going to empower and strengthen the exact same organization that we were fighting in 2001.
Former Army Ranger Tom AMENTA served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He's also lost 2 friends in battle.
I think we're going to be back. And I hate that. I cannot express enough how angry I am ultimately at the thought of knowing that my friends' sons and daughters will put night vision down over their eyes and walk into what I walked into in 2002.
The insurgents took over the country weeks before the final pullout of American and NATO troops. Now the U.S. and the U.K. are deploying soldiers to protect nationals attempting to leave. And both are standing by their decisions to remove their soldiers permanently.
Human rights equalities were promoted and protected in a way that Afghanistan hadn't seen before. And what we're trying to do now is to make sure that we don't prematurely, bilaterally recognize a new government in Kabul without forming a common view and setting the same conditions about how that government should behave.
On Twitter, the White House says Biden and Harris are focused on ensuring the safety of civilian personnel, evacuations of special immigrant visa applicants, and other Afghan allies. Today, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken rejected comparisons of the current U.S. pullout to the Vietnam War.
I have to tell you that the inability of Afghan security forces to defend their country has played a very powerful role in what we've seen over the last few weeks. The fact is, we invested, the international community invested over 20 years, billions of dollars in these forces, 300,000 of them, with an air force, something the Taliban didn't have, with the most modern, sophisticated equipment. And unfortunately, tragically, they have not been able to defend the country. And I think that explains why this has moved as quickly as it's moved.
And the Pentagon has approved an additional 1,000 troops for the safe evacuation of Afghan nationals. That now brings the total of U.S. forces there to roughly 6,000. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting about the state of that country tomorrow morning. Rudabeh.
Felicia, thank you.